I've been putting off this review for about a year since I bought the lens. I wanted to do it justice. I wanted to have some time with the lens to figure out if it's any good, to check the sharpness, to check all the features, to make sure I'm really happy with the lens. Today, the day has finally come that I can review the Fujifilm 56mm f1.2 portrait lens. Welcome guys, my name is John Sparkman. If you're new to the channel, I'm a photographer and a little bit of a videographer from Birmingham in the UK. We are on the National Lockdown Part 2, about to arrive, and so I've got a bit of spare time to review some gear that I bought last year when I was in the heat of wedding season. Now, as a portrait and wedding photographer, you need a good portrait lens. You need to have that isolation, that background separation, you need the very smooth quality depth of field and all this business. You need that in at least one of your lenses. As you may know, I'm a big fan of the kit lens that comes with the camera, the 18-55. However, the lowest aperture it would go, the lower the number. It tops out at f4 when you're at the 55mm end. So although this has the same kind of focal length, this can let in so much more light and it can shoot at such a shallow depth of field that we can really get that isolation and the background separation that we all dream of in that bokeh-licious wonderland. So let's get into some cold hard stats. The lens is a 56mm f1.2 lens. That is, when scaled up to the equivalent 35mm full frame sensor, it's an 85mm f1.4, so very portrait lens. The best thing I can compare it to would be the Sigma 85mm f1.4, one of the lenses I had before when I was on the Canon loadout. This specific lens has 11 elements in 8 groups. Don't ask me what that means, I still don't know. I don't know if more elements are good or bad at this point. It's got a minimum focusing distance of 70 centimeters, so you can get it pretty close on it. I wouldn't advise doing that at 1.2. You're expecting millimeters or just like a centimeter or so of something in focus at that point, and it's going to resolve terribly. It can shoot between f1.2 and f16, should be ample for what you're doing. At f16, everything's going to get compressed at that point. It has a bit of a strange 62mm filter thread on it, so I've actually fitted my 62mm Tiffin Black Pro Mist 1/4 filter on top. There's a future review coming on that, but these are exceptional for kind of smoothing out porous details, killing a little bit of highlights on people's skins. Real nice accessory to have kind of for your portrait loadout. It costs about $849, which is about the same as other lenses in the same category, but it weighs 400 grams. You think that the 400 grams is minuscule for such a big prime lens. Just for clarification, I'm going to run down the Sigma 85mm f1.4 for Canon. That is also a 1.4 to f16 lens. It is also about 950 pounds, but it is a mammoth 1,135 grams. It's nearly 3 times the weight of this kind of little Fujifilm prime lens. So, you know, it is true about the rumours, or true about the facts of mirrorless cameras. They take out the bits you don't need, so they get very light, they're very small. When you're getting customized lenses just for a smaller form factor sensor, you can pretty much half the weight of everything. So this is one of probably my heaviest lens. It's still 3 times less than my old Sigma 85. And if you're in the filter game as well, trying to buy a Pro Mist filter for that, the Sigma I think is an 86mm thread size. It's absolutely monstrous. So you might be having to buy the bigger one and then use loads of step down adapters to make it backward compatible with all of your other lenses. I'm not always using it as much as maybe other people would. I much prefer to use a utility lens like a 24-70 or maybe like a wide zoom like a 17-40mm lens. This gets pulled out when I need to do portraits. So it's not one you can take a kind of a room shot with. It's not one that you can run around and do bridal prep with. It's not one that you can realistically take quick photos of, maybe sports or that kind of stuff. It has a dedicated job, and its dedicated job is to be a portrait lens. So this is where you've got a bit of time, you've got a subject, and you want to really get that bokeh in the background, the blurring of the background, and you want it to be as smooth and as subtle, like painterly as possible. So when I actually take it out and I take a few shots, they are in that dedicated portrait time of the day at a wedding. So we've got a little bit of time with the couple, and you can really focus in, you can get quite far back, and you can really just create some nice images, great to hang on the wall. Now, build-wise, it's pretty much made of metal. So this kind of aperture ring, clickable, it's also metal. The focus ring is solid metal, unlike kind of the Sigmas that had a rubber kind of grip around it. This is built in, so it's proper metal. There you go. Yeah, it's looking all metal at the moment. If I just quickly take these two filters off the front, you've got a monstrous front element, and this is mammoth. So on the portrait lenses, you'll see it needs a big wide piece of glass in it to facilitate the long focal length, and the fact it's got a very low, very small number aperture. It needs to have that wide glass as well to get in as much light as possible. Also fantastic for shooting in low light. As you may imagine, with a 1.2 aperture, you can shoot in, you know, fractions of the light that an f4 might do, you know. It isn't the fastest lens in the world. Although it's a nice silent focusing lens, it's very smooth, and it can use the face tracking that most of the cameras do nowadays. It's not going to be as fast as maybe a smaller utility zoom lens like the 18-55, the kit lens, the magical kit lens. It's just not going to be as fast because it's got lots of heavy elements, 11 of them in those 8 groups. And so, you know, you need to accommodate for that in your shooting style. As I said, take it out for these kind of slow down portrait shoots. Once you've got the distance sorted, so that the mechanisms inside have focused to the approximate distance of your subject, it is then very fast to actually refocus a couple of inches either way. But if you're going from like a meter away to 5 meters away back to a meter, it's probably not the ideal lens for you at that point. We also have a absolutely monstrous lens hood. So if you want to make your lens look a little bit bigger, you can slap that on and it's about double the size already. The longer the lens length, so 50, 60, 70mm going upwards, the longer these are going to be. And it's just designed, it's kind of mathematically designed to stop any kind of glancing light coming in from an angle and causing any kind of flaring in your picture. It's also kind of got a weird kind of ribbed texture on the inside. I think that's just to scatter the light if anything comes in. Now, I went out before the national lockdown started with my friend Kyle, and we just did some comparisons really. He's got a Sony A something or other, alpha camera, and he's got the Sigma 50mm Art series. So a lens I used to have, and a lens I used to have the entire variations, 35, 50 and 80. He's got one of them. So we went out, we tried them. I know the lenses aren't exactly the same, but they do share a lot of similar kind of skill sets in them. The low aperture, the large pieces of glass in them, and the fact that they're really designed for portraits at that point. It was a nicely overcast day, so the lighting wasn't too tricky. The kind of the leaves were starting to fall off the trees. It's autumn, obviously. And yeah, we were just playing around trying to get some nice portraits. He snapped a couple of me, quite happy with. I snapped a couple of him. One of the beautiful things about this lens is if you've got the distance, so if you've got the space between you and your subject, say 2-3 meters, you really get this pin sharp kind of focus on just the subject and everything in front. So if you want to maybe obscure parts of the image with like some leaves or some foreground element, that goes completely blurry. And then behind the subject as well starts to go blurry. So it's really like it's honing in on just exactly what you want. It's almost like it's photoshopping out the rest. It's putting a Gaussian blur on it, but it's all in camera. And lastly, we just did a kind of a head-to-head. So we actually tried to see if we could fit the same tree and camera bag in shot. His 50mm versus my 85. And you can see the cropping that occurs when you jump up to an 85mm equivalent. So would I recommend this lens? Absolutely. If you're doing any portrait work, I'd absolutely recommend this lens. It's small, it's lightweight. If maybe you've got like a 70-200 equivalent lens, it may be less of a purchase choice for you. You can achieve similar results using like a 200mm at f2.8. The same percentages of in focus are going to be in, and the same bokeh is kind of going to appear. You're going to buy this for that medium range portrait lens with the spectacular out of focus elements in the background and the foreground. Light, compact, keep it with you every day. When I'm at a wedding, I'll have this on my second body for the entire day, with the exception of the reception at the end. Tongue twister. With the exception of the reception at the end, I will have this on my X-T3 all day. I'll be using my utility 18 to 55mm to capture most of the day. Change up to that if I see something in the distance I want to snap, or if I want to get a nice portrait. And then just, yeah, interchange between the two. If you have this lens, please drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts of it. I'm really interested, I'm genuinely interested to find out what people think of this lens. And as always, if you like the content, stick around and subscribe. See you in the next video.